Do you find yourself regularly questioning your sense of self-worth? And it's like also at the same time, maybe you're attached to something and it's a back and forth game. Maybe whatever it is that you're attached to, maybe it's a thing, maybe it's a person. Maybe the person validates you 1 minute and then they invalidate you the next minute. It's back and forth, right? All of a sudden you're incredible, you feel worthy, but then all of a sudden after that, you're somehow not incredible and you feel unworthy. Something that I think a lot of people are unaware of, and even a far majority of the world operates in the exact opposite way, is that there's a difference between extrinsic self worth, where you tie your sense of self worth to things in the external, whether it's a person or a thing or whatever it may be, whatever it is that you learned to tie your sense of self worth to through your childhood and your upbringing. There's that. And from what I've learned, a far majority of the world's population operates in that way. And then there is intrinsic self worth, where you determine yourself, you validate yourself, you approve of yourself. And that's the difference in terms of self worth. There's extrinsic or intrinsic. Now, the fascinating thing about this is that people that are operating from a place of extrinsic self worth, right? They've tied their sense of self worth to the external, many different things, people, and jobs, and colleges, and marriages, and whatever it may be, right? Their sense of self worth is tied out there. So, whatever it is that's going on out there is essentially dragging them everywhere, dragging them up, dragging them down. That's the way that it works. But the people that are used to that way of living are going to consistently experience highs and lows. They're going to consistently experience ups and downs in terms of self worth. For the people that don't operate that way, the people that operate from a place of intrinsic self worth, they're not tied to anything out there. They don't look for the external to validate their sense of self worth. They validate themselves, they approve of themselves. Now, these contrasts are very different, and people that were raised in different ways in childhood, either healthy or unhealthy. Of course, there is somewhat of a spectrum, and no child had a perfect childhood, but people that were raised in healthy, or I should say healthier childhoods, they learned intrinsic self worth. They learned to validate and approve of themselves by parents that first started off doing that and then taught them through the transition how to do that themselves. People that learned that their self-worth was tied to things outside of their achievements. Oh, you're only worthy if you do X, Y, and Z. Oh, you're only worthy if you get into that university. Oh, you're only worthy if you marry that person. Oh, you're only worthy if you do X. It's the same thing over and over again. But the fascinating thing is that people that struggle with self-worth are usually the ones that have their self worth tied to the external, extrinsically. Now, the challenge here is bringing all of that stuff back to you. Otherwise, you're just going to live a life of ups and downs, of what I would argue to be this vicious cycle of tying your self worth to things and people that are unstable, that are always changing, that are going to continue to be up and down and back and forth and all over the fucking place. And quite honestly, who the hell wants that? Not I, says Chris. It's been a while since I've said that. It's actually not been many videos that I've said that in, but anyway, it's just a moment of comedic humor to like break the seriousness. So yeah, it's fascinating because people that have their sense of self worth tied to the external, extrinsic, they experience severe ups and downs. Imagine what it must be like for somebody to feel worthy in one moment, but then the next moment they don't feel worthy at all. They feel worthless, actually. Imagine feeling worthy and then all of a sudden you feel worthless. And that's because, maybe for instance, you feel worthy because the person that you're in a relationship validated you. Oh, you're so lovely. You're so beautiful. I love you. And then in the next minute, for whatever reason, I guess because they're an unhealthy individual, they flip. The exact opposite. Oh, you're terrible. You're terrifying. You're ugly. You're a horrible person. It doesn't really matter why they're flipping. I mean, that in and of itself is its own shit show. But quite honestly, this is the issue and the vicious cycle that comes with tying your sense of self-worth to the external is that it's unpredictable, it's unstable. You're relying on something out there that you cannot control to validate and approve of you and to give you this sense of self that you could actually just give to yourself if you were to do the work and to recognize that your worth is not dependent on anything or anybody else. Like, can we imagine for a second just how fucking powerful that is? Your worth is not tied to anything or anybody else. It's really not. You may have been taught that it is. You may have been taught that you'll only be worthy if you get into this Ivy League school or if you get this degree and you make this much money and you do X, Y, and Z and you're a CEO, you're an executive, you're married to the finest woman in town, the finest man. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you've been taught that your sense of self-worth is somewhere out there. That's fucked up and unhealthy. Because being able to validate and approve of yourself and determine yourself, actually having a healthy ego state, that's the shit right there. That's the powerful shit. And when you are solid in that, when you're grounded in that, or for the New Agers, I think the term is based, or modern day shit, whatever it is. There's like always new lingo coming out these days. I don't know what it is, but you're grounded in yourself. You know who the fuck you are. Maybe you were traumatized in childhood, but you took the time to do the work on yourself and heal the nooks and crannies, the crevices, the slashes, all the scathing and marring, all that stuff. Doing the work to bring it back to wholeness. And now you're starting to see yourself as whole, as this person who does not need another half, a better half. Oh, that's my better half. That's no. That to me sounds toxic as hell. So you're unnecessarily reliant on this person to be something for you that you could actually be for yourself. And you can validate and approve of yourself. I mean, show of hands, who else grew up learning that somebody else was supposed to be their better half? Or that, they're not whole unless they have, you know, this other person in their life. It's bullshit. It's unhealthy. Somebody that has intrinsic self-worth, they determine themselves. They validate and approve of themselves. They say yes when they want to, with zero anxiety. They say no when they want to, with zero anxiety. Nobody else determines them. Nobody else gets to say who they are. And you can be damn sure that they're not going around life with this anxious mentality that they have to walk on eggshells because they might lose their sense of self-worth because they've learned to tie it out there or out there. No, 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 they don't give a shit what other people think about them. And other people's opinions of them don't sway the way that they feel about themselves because they know who they are and they've recognized that they're like, wow, you clearly don't see me. So, yeah, sayonara. And that's it. Having your self-worth tied to the external, having an extrinsic self-worth, is both unpredictable, uncontrollable, and a third thing, of course. It is just a vicious cycle of backs and forths and ups and downs and all over the place. And imagine chasing something that you can't catch. Like you can actually not catch it. It's exhausting. I know that a lot of people probably think about like relationships where like men chase women, or maybe even vice versa. I've never really heard of that before, but I don't buy any of that. I think it's all unhealthy. Imagine though living a life where you exhaust yourself in chasing things and chasing people. Hey, can I have your validation, please? It lets me know who I am. And I'm genuinely not making fun of anybody. What I am doing here, I'm trying to paint a picture, I'm trying to paint a narrative of just how fucking absurd it is to live in a way where you're so unstable. You're constantly seeking something from other people that you could give to yourself, something that is actually leaving you dangerously vulnerable. Dangerously vulnerable to abuse, emotional, maybe even physical. None of that stuff is acceptable. You're leaving yourself vulnerable to something that you don't actually have to leave yourself vulnerable to. And if you were to do the work, to take care of yourself, to bring all of your focus back to yourself, even if it's uncomfortable, even if there's something inside of you that's like, I can't do this. I'm so used to putting my sense of self-worth out there. Just please validate and approve of me. I don't know how. Yeah, you can absolutely live that way. After learning about, sorry, I had a burp. After learning about intrinsic self-worth, I don't understand why anybody wouldn't dive into that ocean of a universe and just be like, whoa, I've spent my entire life tying my sense of self-worth out there to things that are uncontrollable, unpredictable, unstable. Wow, yeah, let's not do that anymore. Instead, let's get to know myself better and be like, wow, I'm the person who wakes up and falls asleep with me every single day. I dress myself, I bathe myself, I take care of myself. I know me. Nobody else even really, I mean, the only people that I choose to be intimate emotionally with, they're the only ones that know me and not even as good as I know myself. Why would I ever let somebody else determine me? I can be strong in my own understanding of myself, my own sense of self, be more aware of who I am, what it is that I desire, what it is that I go after. And quite honestly, let go of everything else. It's an exhausting game to try to seek validation and approval from other people. You don't actually need it. You might believe that you do, you might think that you do because you were taught that that's the only way that you exist, is through other people's perceptions of you, other people's ideas of you. Quite honestly, it's all bullshit. And it's not healthy. Imagine a life where you can actually see yourself for who you are through how you see yourself, not through anybody else's lens. Oh, I wonder how this person thinks about me. Oh, I wonder how this person thinks about me. It doesn't matter. Like, they have their own life. You don't need their check marks, their stamp of approval. You don't need their rating. You don't need any of that stuff. How do you feel about you? Take all of your focus, all of your energy, all of your awareness back from everything you've given it to and just ask yourself, how do I feel about the things that I've been through in life? How do I feel about myself? I'm all alone. Let me be in silence. Let me just be in my mind. Let me be in my body. Let me be in my heart. Let me feel this entire experience alone without any interruption, without any boundary violations from other people. Unsolicited bullshit. Let me just be by myself and figure out how I actually feel about myself, separate from how everyone else might feel about me. Maybe it's not actually that important to try to figure out so much how other people think about me, how they feel about me. How do I feel about me? How do I feel about the things that I've been through in life? Forget about trying to be validated and approved of by other people. That doesn't matter. How do I feel about myself? And maybe my growling stomach, even though I just ate. How do I feel about this experience of life? What are my opinions? What are my thoughts? What are my emotional states? And then you can see how deep this goes. You get to choose you for you. It doesn't have to be any other way. You get to determine yourself. And you don't have to tie your sense of self worth to anything out there, especially when it's so unpredictable and uncontrollable. Who would actually want that? That's not stable. It's only if that's what you are used to from childhood. Doesn't sound like a fun time to me, though.